Hey, welcome back.
Hey, welcome back.
Anytime.
I don't know. I feel like,
It's weird on the first couple.
yeah,
You know, you're talking to nobody, but
talking to everybody.
talking to everybody.
Well, you're only talking to 6 people,
Mhm.
so it's not like fear of public speaking is kicking in or anything.
I don't have a fear of public speaking.
Just imagine them all in their underwear.
I don't even need to do that.
I have some good looking underwear.
Katie got me Skims for Christmas.
I don't know what those are.
Are those like the...
Kim
Not sacks.
Kardashian's underwear line,
I wouldn't
which
put that in the podcast
Yeah.
if I were you.
they're really comfortable. They're really good.
What are they? Cotton?
I don't know what they are. They're like
They're just a
or
hybrid.
what technology has advanced in like ball technology, but
The ballpark sack holder.
they're really nice.
Yep, that's the luxury underwear line.
Yeah.
Now
They're
we
really
got
nice.
2 listeners. I wear Kim Kardashian underwear. I'm not into this.
All right.
They lost it around episode
Yeah,
5.
okay. Yeah, I mean,
It was pretty good. I don't know, a little rocky, but
bound to lose people at some point.
Yeah.
Whatever.
everything ends.
How much were they?
Come
If I were to wash
She didn't
my
tell me.
underwear,
I'm going to bed. Expensive.
Well, now I'm wondering.
what department store?
She didn't tell me they were probably expensive.
She's got good taste.
Did you see they're making a Shire or
Lego set.
Lego set?
I did see that. I thought
If
of you
you-
right away.
Buy it. It comes with a Smeagol free set of him in the water and then
Deagle.
Deagle in the boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Brutal. I wonder if you can choke him
It's
with his little claw.
it's bag end on the front, and then if you flip it around, it's inside bag end.
Cool.
It's a cool set.
Neat.
People are upset about the cost. It's like 16 cents a brick.
That's
which
the
is
metric. You got to go by brick cost.
Normally it's like 6
It's
cents
under
a brick.
Yeah, it's like well under
my
10.
God.
Yeah. So people are not happy.
People are still going to buy it.
I'm not
I
gonna buy
will
it.
buy it.
I'm not going to buy it.
I will buy it.
I'm not going to buy it.
Tariffs on Legos now.
Tariffs on
Yeah.
Legos.
And we're down to 1 listener.
Dear one listener, I am Cameron. I'm Chalk4. If you're watching via video, you might notice a big old Daniel Craig Casino Royale poster that there's a whole story behind that. But if you're particularly aware, there's a small little hole next to his neck. One time in middle school, I brought down Duncan or Tyler's BB gun and tried to shoot him and missed from maybe like 5 feet away, and then felt bad that I put a hole in it and never told anybody. So,
Till now.
It was fairly obvious within a couple of days that there was a big old hole in that poster.
and I missed.
Yeah, and you missed. But I think there are other holes, aren't there? Is it just that one? No, I
I don't know.
grazed him on the neck.
I used to take Dad's blow dart and shoot it in the back of their bathroom door.
Just at the door?
Yeah.
Kind
Why
of
not?
hard to hide the holes.
Yeah, but like whatever.
All right. Yeah, hey, whatever. That's funny. Me? You?
Sure.
Go for it.
Hi, I am Tyler. I'm Chalk2. Fun tidbit as we continue to reintroduce ourselves to connect with you, dear one listener. When I was about, I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, the family had done a trip to Japan, to which we did a hop. We had to separate because on the way back, we had to separate. Half of the family went commercial, and Dad and I went
Space A.
Space A. I don't know what that means.
Space available.
Space available.
Mm-hmm.
To which our C5
Galaxy.
had to make an emergency landing. I am one of, I don't know, a small percentage of people who has been able to ride down the inflatable slides from a C5 too, which is
Yeah,
like,
dude, that's tall.
Yeah,
that's, I don't know.
and they
4 stories high.
barely inflated.
Yeah.
It was very limp.
They were when you, notably, I did take my backpack with me, which was big no, but like when you did hit that slide, it was like, oh,
Yeah, it just went down.
yeah,
Buffing.
straight down.
Yeah.
That was exhilarating.
Yeah, you ran up to me and said, "Can we do it again?" I was like, "Dude, no."
They didn't want us taking pictures on the
No, I have
Tarmac,
a picture
remember?
of that.
Yeah,
though.
they're
I can find
back
it.
on like digital cameras. They're like, no pictures,
Yeah.
no pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little. And then they basically said, too, that that happened so rarely that they had to go to the boneyard
Mm.
to get
Like
those
a new
those
slide.
off of a boneyard plane. So then our plane was stuck there for like days. So we didn't get out of
Because
there.
they had to,
Yeah, until they got it fixed.
man.
I remember you went ahead of me. There was some giant
Another PJ. He's Samoan.
Samoan, and he was he was catching people at the bottom with this giant arm.
Clothesline me.
He was clotheslining everybody. He just was like stopping
Women,
you.
children.
People stopped.
They did stop.
They did stop.
Like he went, you went. We were right at the door, and then I got ready to go, and the load was like, "Hold on a minute," and he handed me a kid,
Oh, really?
a child, like maybe Freya's age.
Hmm.
He goes, "Take this." I'm like, "Oh, I should have asked." You know what I mean?
Coward.
I'm getting ready to go. I'm going out. He's like, "Do you take a child, please?"
Oh, right.
But I was kind of like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's you're way up there. Right?
Civvy life, I don't know. Yeah, wild times.
Yeah. Hey, my name's Duncan Chalk One. I don't know. I guess I can kind of tie back to that poster because that came out of my college career. I swam in college. I roomed with a dude who went on to be a Rhodes Scholar. And I think he was with me when we procured that poster, which probably involved a little bit of like, it was dark.
Thievery.
We didn't own the poster to begin with. And now it's in this basement.
And it's like, if you're not watching on video, it's a...
This is like one of those like Casino Royale was coming out.
Yeah.
It was like the first new Bond movie, like Daniel Craig's first movie as Bond. And so it is a huge vinyl, like basically like a billboard
Mhm.
of, like the scene of him walking down the steps, somebody's ass, I guess. We thought it was badass. So that was hanging in I think that hung in one of our houses for like a year or two. It was after we moved out of the dorms, I think.
Was it also in a basement setting like this, or was it like front and center in a living room?
Oh, houses in Kirksville were so dumpy that like the main floor was grosser than a basement anyway. So like,
It did not matter.
that's not a good like gauge.
Mm.
That house had like this roulette stair I'll never forget. So there was no lighting in the stairwell that went upstairs, and the paint was really dark and the carpet was like black. So at nighttime, you could not see anything. And me and Schwiebert lived upstairs. But one step, the wooden frame had collapsed on itself, but the carpet held the shape of a step. So if you caught that one, your foot just went inverted on like the step carpet.
ACL torn.
He was about 2/3 of the way up. So you knew it was like, as you're getting to the top, you're like, I'm almost in the clear. Like, but that one step is in there somewhere.
The wild card
And
stuff.
it like hurt like people who didn't know that was there, and we'd forget to tell them. They're like, "What's upstairs?" I'm like, "Yeah, go check it out. It's where the Xbox is." And then you just hear like people falling down the. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's
by the way,
this one step will catch you.
There's a false stare.
Yeah,
we catch
never
intruders.
logged
Yeah.
that with our landlord. Like just
Oh, God.
I don't even think they know. Man. All right. That's
You got anything?
No, as always,
With that all being said, welcome back to All Right Last One and
Jolly Fight Chicken.
chalk one,
Chalk 2.
Chalk 4.
Here we go.
and then we smash them up, don't we? I
Maybe.
feel like that's what we did last
Why
time.
wouldn't we?
It's all blurring together now. I don't remember anymore. Bad luck to cheers with an empty glass.
Shout out Yamazaki.
Yes, our whiskeys for the
I think it's the same
Weekend?
ones as last time.
It is.
Like,
No, last time we had a distiller's edition,
You're right.
which I think is a 12.
actually.
You're right. Oh, man.
I know this because I just listened to the episode.
You're totally right.
Yep.
So we clearly have two favorites.
Yeah, we're kind of creatures of habit here.
Mhm.
Like,
Maybe for like the 100th episode, we could get a happy.
Yeah, okay.
That's like
Where the fuck are we going to find that?
from all our listeners.
Oh yeah, maybe someone will send. Yeah, I'm with Cameron.
What? You gotta set the bar
You know
high.
how
You
many
gotta
I
set
have
the bar
seen
high.
at retail?
Costco sells a Louis
This is-
cognac. We could
Yeah.
also get a $8,000 Louis cognac.
If you see a Pappy at Costco, someone's buying it that second,
me.
regardless of the price.
It's me. And I'll
Because they
flip
had
it.
Yamazaki as we were going into holidays for 140, and I misremembered the price. I was like, oh, I think, like, I don't know, is it 150? It's not that big of a savings. That retails for like 200. So it was like a $60 savings. And the Costco guy said he's been there since that location opened and he's seen that only that one time.
Mm.
And that was Yamazaki too. I will say though, Costco's wine is wild. They have like
I was talking
some
to them.
insane
The-
vintages.
Their scotch is actually really good.
The
like-
Kirkland one.
Like 30 or $50, and they're very good.
Mm,
So half the
Excellent.
price and very tasty.
very good. A lot of pressure being the DM.
Oh, mouthwash of the Yamazaki 12 year.
Cameron just
Baller.
gargled Yamazaki 12, and
that is a.
that's horrendous. What is that like?
It wasn't that bad.
I'm gonna throw up.
So the impetus for this episode, as I was structuring it, was my mind went back to a book that I had read many moons ago by Admiral McRaven. I think it's called just like Make Your Bed.
I think it is Make Your Bed.
I think it's
I've
Make
read
Your
that
Bed.
too.
William H. McRaven,
Yeah.
Admiral William H. McRaven,
Bill's book.
Bill's book.
And it's, for those that don't know, I think it's like 10 stories that he has collected from his time in the military. A lot of them were from Buds.
Which is
Well, that's
What is the
SEAL
acronym?
SEAL
selection.
SEAL
SEAL
selection, but
that's what
it's-
I'm trying to
Basic underwater demolition school, maybe.
Yeah.
I think.
I don't know. Who cares? And
Cameron's episode.
one of the
We're
stories
up to 9
is
listeners all
to
of a
just
sudden.
make your bed. Whenever you have a shit day, you can come home and you have one thing that you can control under control. So that's what I remember from it, is to just make your bed every day because at least one thing's done. Another story that I remember is him and a lot of his fellow students were neck deep in mud, getting quite literally hosed by the instructors. It was cold, and one of the students starts singing. They're neck deep in mud, and one of the students starts singing, and under threat of being stuck there all night from the instructors, more and more students start joining in. And it's that kind of, when you're faced with just the shittiest of situations, those people that can look at that and go, actually, this is kind of fun, and this is kind of funny, and this reminds me of this. And it's this really weird flip on how everyone else would see the situation, which I think embodies this term that has floated around the Stevens family for a long time of embrace the suck, which I think I've heard that ad nauseum all my life. And I'm sure
Well, that and one other line that
Which also is like
we can all
similar. Sentiment
for
as
sure.
well.
That they have the same
Yeah.
core meaning.
Yeah.
the hard man, hard
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other one is you want to be a hard man, you got to live a hard life.
To which you're like, I don't.
Yeah,
I
like,
don't.
pass. I'd rather have a soft life,
I want
soft
a
body.
I did not
soft
choose
body.
this. I
Please.
would like it to end.
Yeah, yeah.
Please. Embrace the suck is
Embrace the suck is often thought about in the back of my mind. And the third one that all ties it together is from a man that I'm sure we have mentioned already. If not, he will be mentioned a lot coming up. But from Tony Alexander, that just, I think it came up from whenever he was in the pool doing water training. And it just kind of came down to, as shitty as this may be, everything ends at one point. So no matter how bad something is, at some point it will end. Which, when I was saying this for the first time, Duncan actually mentioned a good thing about that, which
Oh, well, yeah. As much as you can use that as a motivator to get through something that's uncomfortable and take solace in knowing that that will end at some point, it should also actually have you embrace things that are going really well and to try and live more in the moment, because that is also going to end. So I remember when Nora was really young and being a new parent, this is on the horizon for you. Like, there's a lot of, you're sleep deprived. You haven't been eating really well. You probably haven't been drinking enough water. The baby's going crazy. Your wife's tired. You're fucking tired. You got to change the diaper. You got to do feeding. And I remember like saying to myself, like, oh, this is going to end. Like, it sucks. But even in that same moment, actually calming her down, sitting with her in a rocking chair, there was this like moment of like peace, and like my problem solving skills were able to give this little baby exactly what she needed when she needed it. And now she's super happy. She's content. She's quiet. But then like that thought was still fresh enough in my mind that like, well, this too will also end, because she's going to be back to losing her mind in an hour. I don't, so like, that's kind of where I made the distinction of like that line does it both ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And both of them can be for good. It gets you through the hard shit and it makes you live in the moment of good shit.
And not take it for granted. Yeah.
Not take it for granted.
Take the good for granted.
And I miss, I don't hold Nora in that chair anymore. Like that was.
Or finding the small things too in the suck of like.
Yeah.
That was actually really, that was actually really fun to be out there with the boys getting destroyed and then like coming together and rallying and sticking it to the instructors, like, that those people think fondly on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So those three things in my soft body, soft life, soft job,
keyboard hands,
work from home life, I do think about sometimes whenever the stakeholders are at risk. I think that how can I increase shareholder value?
For the shareholders.
Think of the shareholders, man.
Do you think PJs have to think about shareholders?
Their shareholders are the bleeding out people on the front lines. So yeah.
Who's got it worse?
Yeah. Who's working harder, honestly? We may never know.
No, we are.
Yeah. I think about those things a lot, just in the grand scheme of things, the minute hardships of my life, that those three things often do pop up. So with that all being said, we will elevate it to the next
chapter marker.
Well, to somebody who experienced hardship I will never know in my life, hopefully. Dad, can you tell us about Scotty Fales and the cans?
Yeah, so Scott Fales was actually my first manager in the Air Force, like my first supervisor. And really great guy, older guy. We both got to McClellan. He's a little bit older, had a family. I think he had certainly one child, maybe two. And he'd already had a bit of an Air Force career for a while, and then he trained back into Pararescue. And great guy, great sense of humor, real devilish. Like, he was just always kind of had an idea about how to do something kind of a little bit insane and crazy, and most of the time did it. And did anything he could
noticing
think he
a
did.
pattern. yeah. All these guys.
Dad had said that there was a personality
disorder.
Yeah.
A lot of these special operators.
Yeah, and
exhibited
this unit too. Like there was a really great units had personalities as a unit. Like all of the people together equaled the unit, right? And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes places you did not want to be stationed at. And I got really lucky that my first assignment was McClellan, and the 30 to 40 guys that we had there, for the most part, really gelled, and we had some great characters, right? So, but anyway, so we did years together at McClellan. I think Scott either went, I'm not sure what his next assignment was, but he ended up at the 2-4 at the real special ops unit. That was sort of, you volunteered to be a PJ, and then when you went to this next level unit, the tier 1 unit, you had to volunteer again, and then you were selected again. You went through some really difficult testing that really made sure that you were very good at your PJ school skills, not just kind of good, but actually, really, really good. And then there was, psychological testing, and over time, that testing and those evaluations just got more and more specific to what they needed those people to go do. So the story is, everybody knows the Black Hawk Down story, I think, right? For most people listening to this, or they'd be interested in this, they understand what happened in Black Hawk Down. They may or may not know that there were some Air Force people, that a guy named Tim Wilkinson won the Air Force Cross, and Scotty won Silver Star, was wounded, had a Purple Heart. And those guys were trying to get to, I believe they fast roped in, and they were trying to get some of the crew out of one of the 60s that had been shot down. And it was obviously, that was the worst combat in the United States since, I don't know how long, since Vietnam, right? It was like the most sustained firefight. It was really
it was a long firefight too, right?
Yeah, it was real war for a long period of time. It was a real hard fight. And, it was everything, I think, that every Ranger, every Delta guy, every PJ, every helicopter pilot had been training for up until that happening. And then it was all on the line, right? That was in a way, you could think of it as the nightmare scenario, or you could think of it as, this is our Super Bowl,
Yeah.
And I mean, if you lived, it was the
Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl. If you didn't come home, it was, the worst day of your life, and your family's life. But Scotty tells this story, and because of his personality, right? He's such a great sense of humor, is such a great natural leader. And so knowing someone, up until that point, we kind of were all waiting for something like this to happen again. And knowing Scotty and Tim Ryan and Ish was there, and just a lot of my PJ friends that were there. I was really dying to talk to them. Like, what, after all this time, what was that like? How did you? And somehow I can't exactly remember how I heard this story. If Scotty told me directly, which I think he did, but he said that when he and Scott were inside the bird and they were trying to work on people, there were so many rounds coming through the aircraft that was just tearing up what the plane is made of. The sort of the outside
sheet metal,
and
nothing,
and magnesium, whatever the frame's made out of, you know what I mean? And it was just ripping it up. So there were just shards and metal particles and pieces and parts of things, and it's pop, 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 and stuff floating in the air. And I'll say the line, and then we can talk about where it comes from. But I guess he looked over at Tim and he said, "It's the cans. He hates the cans."
While he's like,
they're about to die.
He's like,
they're
going to work.
Yeah, it's not like someone's poking pencils through paper. Those are bullets coming through and having the wherewithal to compare that to a Steve Martin movie, the Jerk, and he's the gas station attendant, and he doesn't realize there's an assassin
up in the hill.
Yeah, a sniper. And he thinks the cans are defective initially because all these holes are popping in it. And then he realizes that he's shooting at it, and then he thinks that he hates the can.
it's the cans.
And that just stopped me in my tracks, right? Because I was like,
the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, imagine being the other PJ in the bird. Like, what the fuck did you just say? What are you saying?
But it also, I think what I learned is that for at least, because you never know, right? Like I was never in a situation like that, so that you just can't know till you are. But I think for me, what I took out of it was sort of like an algebra equation, right? Is that I knew Scott for a long, long time. And that was him.
Yeah.
And so for him to be himself
in a moment
and portray one of his predominant personality traits inside of that moment, it made me think that, I guess you can, you know what I mean? I guess you don't evaporate You know what I mean? And
I wonder, I could be misremembering. It's been a long time since I've seen like the movie Black Hawk Down, but there is some scene, and I think like without identifying the character, I think as the Wilkinson guy, like they're treating someone in one of the down Blackhawks. He's like hanging like an IV bag. So if, for anyone like watching who's familiar with Pararescue, they'd be like, oh, that might be like a PJ, right? But there's that character says something like, I'm going to whip you boys up like a couple of margaritas. And I kind of wonder if like, as they were doing research for the script and the story of that movie, like, you know, there was a PJ in the helicopter, shit's really bad, and they're like cracking jokes. And you know, maybe like, I wonder if that was maybe told in some scenario that inspired, I think, that line in the movie.
Had some creative.
I just realized there's like, kind of a similarity of that.
Years and years.
Well, one of the exciting things for me is, you know, these are our early episodes, right? We will have Scott Fales sitting at a table and he will tell his story, which will make, I'll get fired at that point. We don't need you anymore. He will sit in this seat for the rest of the time you guys want to do it. But it will be fun to, as a panel, ask him questions, right? He'll tell the story. It'll be better than, you know, how I told it. And, but then I would also like to ask Tim, like, what did you think when he said that? Did you laugh, or did you like, you got to be a little more serious right now? I need you with me.
Yeah, like,
are you serious right now?
Did you get shot? Like,
Did you get hit? Are you
okay?
Yeah.
It's the cans. He hates the cans.
What the fuck are you saying?
We've lost Scott.
So you know, that is one of my all-time favorite stories. I'm you know, so proud of how those guys lived up to the mantle of the career field for all of those people, you know, in Vietnam that were renowned for those kinds of things. You know, when that happened, and Tim is a very humble guy, and you know, winning the Air Force Cross at that point in time, you know, it's always been an amazing thing, but it started happening more when wars started showing up more, right? So there had been a period of time where the last person that had won it was a long time ago. And
30 years.
Tim was kind of in that next ramp, and you know, he couldn't have been more humble. It didn't change him. And I think it really set the tone for, you know, in Vietnam, you know, it was a pilot that got shot down and was in the jungle, and guys went in and got down on the penetrator and got him out. Those were a lot of the missions, that mission set. But now, you know, something like Somalia, working with all of that really, you know, multi-service, special ops, special forces kind of, you know, arena, that PJs could really hold identity in that, and the ability to be the best medic, but also be able to operate in that kind of situation, right? So real proud of their history, and I look forward to us talking to them, learn more about it.
Especially, just to like, was he truly reminded of this one scene from that movie? And like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, it's just like the cans. I got to tell somebody.
And if I would, I know we're going to have,
what are you
I gotta key in on the radio for this. This is too good.
He's tapping him on the shoulder like, hey, it's the cans.
You know what this reminds me of?
That's the point though, is like that kind of behavior is not learned. That's not learned behavior. That is inherited behavior from birth, that you just have something in your subconscious that when you're literally getting shot to shit from
all directions,
AK rounds, that your mind just goes to like, it's the can. He hates the cans.
He probably had a heart rate of like 140.
Yeah. That's not to say he's not like stressed. He's not scared, like, because that's a human nature thing. But I think it's kind of like, can I de-escalate the situation a little bit? Can I create a calmer environment through a little bit of humor?
Yeah.
And this is a really bad place to be. For some reason, I'm reminded of this. I'm going to punch it in and like send it through to the rest of the crew on the bird. And like, maybe they'll laugh, and maybe they won't be as scared, because this is scary. This is scary shit.
Wow.
it's the ability to actually do your role in the face of like some really difficult situations, but still be able to. And that's why, I'm not exactly sure how that operator term initially showed up. I mean, it just showed up one time, and that's, people that do this kind of work, that's the moniker that they had. But for me, as you said that about Scott, that's kind of how I feel like that term got used, that you can still do the work, right? Like you're able to operate under that kind of environment and do the mission, right? But I do think that it is, I think it's personality driven. It's, but when going back to your point around buds and selection courses and going through really difficult things in another scenario first, in a controlled scenario with the right kind of people, and then you can draw back on that, everything ends, right? All that stuff is kind of woven together, and that even though that was the first scenario like that he'd been in, he was able to pull forward all these other situations that he'd been in with these same people. And I mean, the other thing too is, doing this kind of work, you kind of know that it can end quickly.
Very quickly.
I mean, that's not a surprise, right? It can end quickly. We've talked a lot about in peacetime, in accidents and mishaps, right? And or doing the mission, war or not. And I think in the end, you've accepted that. You've come to peace with that. You're already sort of, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And what happens, right? And so there's a little bit of a Zen.
Like if it's my time, it's my time.
Yeah. And so the reason why I bring that up is that at McClellan, we really adopted this Sioux Lakota mantra of Hokahe, right? That today's a good day to die. And it goes really well with what you said about noticing the good things, right? And I never looked at Hokahe as like macabre or defeatist or, I'm okay if I die today.
Yeah.
It's more about how you lived.
Yeah.
Right. It's just being satisfied about being true to yourself, about telling the people that you care about them, about, about living when you're living. And then, and everybody's going to die one day. Right. And so I really love that sort of indigenous mindset of, today's the day. I'm okay with that. Right. I'm happy. Right. And I really do think a bit of that was Scott's mindset was, I know I can die. I'm not going to be on my knees, whining and crying and falling apart. So somebody else has to take care of me. He actually took the farthest path away from that and said,
"Watch me.
I'm gonna make
without
this
a Steve Martin, Steve Martin reference.
I'm gonna make this guy relax. You know what I mean? Like I'm good, and I'm gonna help him.
I want to, find the person he was working on. See, do you
So did that
remember?
relax you?
This wild
Yeah.
incident that just occurred.
I don't know what was going on.
He's like fucking Air Force. I'm sure that was part of what he was thinking.
Jeez.
But that, okay, so when I said, Scotty really lived up to this Vietnam thing. I mean, I think, if people that are watching this don't know the Pitzenbarger story, it was a Medal of Honor winner from Vietnam. Young guy, got lowered down into the jungle during one of the worst battles in Vietnam to that point in time, and was helping to send wounded up to the helicopter on litters, was helping people find ammunition. Most people were really just getting as low to the ground as they could, and they were just being, just really beat up bad. And he was running around doing things in the middle of this, and people were like, how is he doing that? Right. And just that action tended to start bringing other people out of it a little bit. And then they were able to help themselves better. And then at some point he made a very huge sacrifice, and he told the helicopter to leave and leave him behind because he didn't want to leave the people, even though they were telling him, look, we need to go. The helicopter got shot up. It was leaking hydraulic fuel. They had to go fuel. They had people already on the bird that were hurt, and it was his time to just get on the penetrator and go. And he waved them off and ended up dying. doing what he was doing. But, I had seen some interviews with the Army guys that were on the ground, and every single one of them said it was like he was, not of this world, because at that moment, what he was doing was incredible. Like, and they saw it as incredible, right? So, so I feel like Scotty, that Pitzenbarger story was part of our upbringing and training. And Scott was in the class ahead of me going through selection, so I actually counted his swimming laps as the junior classman. And so I watched him go through. We came through. So yeah, I feel like he's just become such kind of a legend, an icon, but it's tied all the way back to every other icon I've ever known. And that's that guy, right? And when you meet him, I swear to God, he feels like just some, kind of good old boy, backwoods. You just feel like, you're talking to just the salt of the earth. You have no idea, you know what I mean, who this guy is and what he's capable of. Yeah. So he's very unassuming, and that sense of humor is always there and self-deprecating. And so you have no idea the capability of this man that you're standing next to. Right. And it's fun when you do, and you're the one that does, the little bit that I know, I feel like I know what's there, and he just doesn't show it, man. He's, it's like Superman. You never see the uniform,
Yes.
So yeah, great guy, great story. But, learn more about that, and learn more about the longer Pitzenbarger story. We should probably talk about that sometime too.
Yeah.
And the story about you and Pitzenbarger's dad.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I don't know that one. We'll have to put that on the Miro.
Save it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Number 2.
Yep.
Yeah, I think kind of to play off of this broader theme of just in these really hectic, chaotic moments where you could be overwhelmed with stress and whatnot, but someone, for some reason, finds the ability to like crack a joke and lower the tension a little bit. Someone ordered a pizza.
Yeah. So, kind of something that was lore for me, and then I had a chance to like add to the lore, I guess. Yeah, perpetuate the lore. So, and I actually did just a little bit more reading on this earlier tonight, but a friend of mine, John Cassidy, who'd been in Alaska, kind of a legend in the Alaskan. He's actually a stripper at a strip club somewhere in Alaska.
Currently?
Yeah. No. At that point in time, they called him Yukon John was his nickname. You know what I mean? And real big personality.
Probably
really good writer.
Something else, probably.
Yeah, like
huge hands.
Just interesting guy. But he was a part of the largest maritime rescue in history, which was the Prinsendam mission, and it was in '80, I think, and it was a ship that had 329, which I thought was an interesting number because that's exact Air India number. The 329 and the 160 crew, 40 Danish captains, something like that, and that thing caught fire, and everybody on the ship had to get in lifeboats and get off 120 miles off the coast of Alaska in cold, rough water, and the chances that whatever happened next, no one was lost. It is incredible, but it literally, they saved everybody. And John ended up, they were in large lifeboats that maybe had 60 people in the lifeboat or something. I think a large wooden lifeboat. And John...
Wooden?
I think they were wooden. They were like on the side of the ship
Titanic.
that they would lower down.
Oh my God. Yeah. What?
It's like that kind of thing.
Yukon.
Yeah.
Large canoe.
I mean, they weren't inflatable. Why? The point I'm making is that
Okay.
they weren't inflatable.
Or the like fully enclosed modern life rafts.
no,
They're like
it
a
wasn't.
spaceship.
Capsules.
Yeah. You were exposed to the elements.
Yeah. Well, they mentioned that in this article that I read, that they had like 20-foot waves, and the waves were crashing over the boats, and the boats were filling with water, and they were worried that they were going to sink, and they had these tarps that could go over the top, but you had to put them on. And so anyway, that mission again is classic, iconic, unbelievable that the way that turned out. And John was a big part, and his partners, the other PJ was Jose Rios, and I think he was a young PJ at the time with John. But the story goes, as John jumped out of the helicopter, swam through this rough water, got himself into the boat with the 50 or 60 people in the boat, he stood up, kind of brushed off his wetsuit and said, "Did anybody order a pizza?"
To which everyone freezing their ass off is like, "Are you serious right now?"
Yeah, I know, right?
That's like that day's equivalent of like, we've been trying to reach you for your car's extended warranty.
Yeah.
So cool.
And I think too, there may have been like 6 or 8 of these lifeboats, and as they started picking people up, I think they missed one. They thought they'd already picked that one up, and they hadn't. And those guys got left behind for a while. Like they were, if there was a potential that one of these things was going to not make it, it was the one that the 2 PJs were on. Which might be interesting that it ended up being the one that made it, even though it got lost, right? Because these guys were with them. But so yeah, great story, real iconic. And then sort of fast forwarding, I was stationed in Okinawa, and I had a young PJ with me, and we were on alert. And now I'm the more experienced guy. And during the day, we got alerted that a Harrier pilot had just ejected off the coast of Okinawa, had a fire or something, and ejected. So, when we sat on alert and provided coverage for all the planes that were military planes flying around Okinawa, we were on a pretty short launch leash, right? The plane had everything on it. All of our rescue equipment was on it, all of our wetsuit equipment, stuff like that. So basically, as soon as the pilots could spin it up and take off, we would take off. And so we went out, we found him, we low and slowed in, swam up to him. And I don't even know how I even remembered it at the moment, but when I got up to him, and he looked like he wasn't super aware of what was going on, right? Like he wasn't hurt. But he looked like
gone through a pretty
crazy.
Yeah.
It looked like
he was punched out of a 200 mile an hour crashing on fire jet.
But I actually had the thought that he was a Marine pilot, and I had the thought that he was worried he was going to have to pay for the plane. You know what I mean? 'Cause he kind of had that look, like, should I have ejected, or should I have just made it home? And then I gave up, and I was like, "Hey, sir, did you order a pizza?"
Just like swimming.
But he didn't. I don't think he even laughed. I think it just fell flat. I was just
Still
like,
in
"Oh man,
shock.
I've been waiting 15 years to say that to somebody."
I'm gonna get him so good.
and then he had the gall. So then we're getting him. I'm getting him ready to get him. I think we did put him in the litter to get him up. And because sometimes you have to worry about compression fractures when people eject, because they get slammed out of the seat and they can fuck up their back. And so we were cautious that we were being careful. So I'm pretty sure we put him up in the litter. But as we're getting him ready to go, then he's got this sad, he's just like mopey sad, and because I think he might have had his helmet. And I just threw it away, right? You don't need that right now. You got no plane. And I didn't want to fuck around with it. I was thinking about him and the litter and the hoist and, let's go. But when I threw it away, he was like, "My helmet." He's kind of said it like Freya would. You know what I mean? My helmet. And I started to say,
My helmet.
I was telling him all the reasons why that wasn't important right now, but he literally looked so sad. I was like, "Fine," and I swam over. And got it, and brought it back, and I gave it to him. Like, "Here, shut up." But for that, we ended up giving him an IV, which he probably didn't need. But I'm like, "Look, dude, you're getting stuck. If I had to get your helmet, you're getting stuck."
Oops,
Yeah.
I missed.
But I think in the context of all these stories, one of the things that is one of the things I remember the most about that is that the young PJ with me on this mission, he was really aware and in the moment. And, I kind of wondered if things were moving kind of fast. I kept looking back at him to see if maybe he'd be fumbling with some gear that he didn't need to, all the
Dropping
things
a
that you
grenade.
do when you're,
Yeah.
when you're young, you don't know what's most important to think about. But every time I turned around and looked at this kid, he was just looking right back into my eyes with everything ready to go. Like, I'm right here, man. You know what I mean? And he ended up dying later in a helicopter crash. And I think I talked about that potentially, in some part of his eulogy, was just that at that moment, I really saw what he was capable of, even though he didn't have the time and
the reps,
experience of the reps. He was born for that.
Wow.
And much like Scott being very, in the moment, calm, able to, be who he was, this guy was 100% on that day. Did a really good job. So,
Man.
yeah. So I choose to think that when we initially talked about selection and the people that raise their hand to do this and the people that make it through the tough training and why they're raising their hand, I kind of think that it's not an accident that Pitzenbarger, Fales, Jason Kuchar, the guys we're talking about now, and another 50 that gave their lives to this kind of work, that there is a very, there's a design.
Yeah.
There's a design there.
Common thread,
Common design. And when you need it, it's good to know that those are the kind of people that are going to show up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Or that are behind you too.
yeah.
Said however many words to him. You're still looking to see if he was in tow.
Yeah.
To which he was.
He was. I mean, he was. Yeah. And then I found out later he was pissed that I did the IV. He's like,
Give me something.
Come
to
on,
do."
boomer. Why did I let the new guy get an IV, buddy? And I'm like, hey, this one's mine, man. I've waited longer.
I got the helmet. Wow.
Did he laugh at your joke?
I think it was it was landed so flat, Luckily he was behind me and he never heard me
You
say
should have,
it.
What was his name?
thought Jason Kuchar and Richie Sotaro, they ran into the wires in Korea. We'll talk about that. That was a bad night. But I did want to just say one fast one. There was a mission in the last 10 years, I think, that, and I think a lot of people know about this one, but it was the sailboat that got demasted or something went wrong with it, but there was a family with a young child on it, and it was way out in the Pacific. The PJs jumped out to them. And, as I read this story, and I didn't know this gentleman, and he's since passed now, died in an accident.
I didn't know he died.
But I believe that the name of the boat was called the Seahorse. And he was a real hairy guy, a very hairy person. And when he climbed out of the water and was staying on the boat with them for a while, the little girl saw how hairy it was and said he's kind of like a bear, like he was the savior bear. And so he ended up getting I got shivers just thinking about it. Like, he ended up getting this tattoo of a seahorse with a bear riding on the back of the seahorse.
Oh, cool.
With a little girl on the back of the bear.
Ah, cool.
Isn't that awesome?
There's a cool picture of I think he's holding the little girl, and he is like this big hairy dude. And then it shows this massive calf tattoo of a seahorse, the bear, the little girl.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
If we can source that photo, that'd be great to throw up onto a.
But I think too, that's an interesting thing too, is that, you think about that and then you think about the kids trapped in
the cave.
Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then because there's this, it can be an aggression, if the mission is that direct action thing and PJs are around that stuff, it can be an aggressive, Somalia. And, not every story was a funny story about Somalia that Scott told me. There was some real brutality as part of that because of what they were living. And he's tucking in a piece of his calf muscle that's sticking out because a round went through his calf, and
Scott
and,
is?
yeah.
Or?
And he's a real good shot. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Like Scotty Fales is a real good shot. So like there were other people that ended up with holes in them than Scott, right? But I think that it's because of it's not always a direct action mission, and so the influence that guys had on that Thailand mission, and sometimes you're just taking care of a little girl on a sailboat who's scared and who's out in the middle of the ocean, and you're being kind of a babysitter in a way, right? She's not hurt,
keeping them
but
distracted
she's
calm.
He's being kind to this person.
Order a pizza.
Anybody order pizza?
Let's hope he said that, right? Like perfect
Every
opportunity.
single opportunity for any PJ ever to swim up to something.
Yeah.
This is a challenge to all current gen PJs.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
that
it.
lore
Don't
has
let
like
it die.
continued on. Yeah, like actually lean into it harder.
Don't let it die. Yeah.
Ivor Nicholas.
Yeah.
We're calling
Yeah,
you
we're
out.
talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, you need to use the pizza delivery line.
There's that picture of that PJ that picked up that girl in Katrina.
Katrina, yeah.
And whatever year Katrina happened, there's a picture of a PJ getting hoisted up with this little girl. 10 years later, she's at her high school graduation,
Something
I
like
think.
that.
Mhm.
And she invites the same PJ over, and it's this like when she's 8 and when she's 18.
Mhm.
And like it's a really
Cool.
powerful picture of
Mm.
just like this guy saved my life, and I wanted to thank him at my
Wow.
high school graduation.
That's cool.
And we in that recent episode when we talked about the motto, and we talked about, it's my duty to aid the sick and injured, right? Like it doesn't matter where they are or what the scenario is, it's just my
duty.
chosen profession
Yeah.
is to be the person that you ask to go help those people. And that's why I keep a lot of those memories around, just because there really were some special people that did some special things, and I was blessed to be close to them. And I try and kind of, I will say real quick that sometimes I felt like people would get caught up in too much of the specialness of the job. Like, it was really important to kind of maintain who you were as a person and not get too lost in being this
sucked into
special,
Yeah.
quote unquote special role kind of thing. Because then it was important to live by the motto, but not live in the motto.
Mm.
And my definition of that was, you're that's not all of who you are. That's not every part of you.
Yeah.
But when you do that work, it is what you do, right? It is your duty. But I think sometimes people, they basically acted like they had a hat on all the time, and then they got a little lost in it, I thought, right? But that was, that became obvious, I think, to a certain extent. So
Yeah. I think that says a lot about a lot of positions like that, right? Like where you lose yourself in the motto, or it gets to your head, or you forget what the reasons were because
Your entire career is
Whatever.
predicated on like, you are the 0.001%. You're the best. You get the best pro gear. You get the hardest missions. Like, how could you not kind of fall into that? Like,
yeah, I think it's because people like Scott, and that first of all doesn't matter, and the only way that you're actually going to be successful, right, is to do it with everyone else's help.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I think it just ended up that the people that got too lost in it were lacking something in their own confidence in a way. And then it just became all consuming. Not in a bad way. I'm talking nuances here, but I think that's the thing, is that what Scott did is because he was who he was
Right.
first.
right.
Not because he was trying to be something he wasn't, right? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. He was beyond not just. I'm not trying to. He's beyond. He lives and breathes, but he also is his own.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Man. Okay. We have to move on. So I'll jump right into the last story for this episode, and it's You fucked up. I'm in charge.
Yeah, well, this is a short one. Yeah. So yeah, I cannot remember this guy's name. He was stationed in Okinawa. I met him first time, I think, when I went to the Philippines. Really funny, dry, funny, acerbic, great sense of humor. Kind of a fire plug, big, thick dude, but I think he was 5'5" or 5'6", you know. And a little bit older, a higher ranking guy, or, you know what I mean, maybe a master sergeant or something like that at the time. But as the story goes, there were a bunch of Marines in some Zodiac rubber boats off of Okinawa, and they ran out of gas and got stranded, and they had to call on the radio to get help, basically, or the engine stopped, you know, something like that. And
because it ran out of gas.
Yeah. And
Ran
so
out of blinker fluid.
as he told the story, he was like, he low and slowed, you know, jumped out of the helicopter into the water and then swam over to the boat, then jumped into the boat, then stood up.
That's
And
it.
he didn't say, in this
Everything is always like in the water, low and slow, swam up,
Thinking
stood
about
up and
what
said,
you're gonna say.
You're gonna drop the pizza joke on these fools.
While Cameron was building all these, I did not realize how many fucking pizza stories were attributed to this episode.
I just want to know what was going on in whoever's head as they're doggy paddling,
Dude,
or
you-
breaststroking, or freestyling.
Yeah.
As they're getting up to a dinghy, and they're like, "I'm gonna drop the
Yeah,
pizza line."
Is it like, is
it
it
like-
spur of the moment, or are they practicing while they're swimming up? You know, this is probably a long swim.
Yeah. So anyway, he gets in the boat, stands up, and then, you know, you kind of have to understand the Marine mentality too, right? There's a difference between PJs and Marines, and both have their place, and God bless them both, and Semper Fi. And, you know, one of my best friends, Tony Alexander, was Marine first before he became a PJ, right? So like, but there's a lot more rank structure for a reason, and
There's like hierarchy being like,
yeah. It's just a different thing. And so he jumps in the boat and stands up. He's like, "Who's in charge?" And whoever it was, the gunny or whoever it was, he raised his hand and he goes, "That'd be me." And he's like, "Nope." He goes, "Not anymore." He goes, "You fucked up. You're out here with no gas. I'm in charge now."
Just commandeer your Zodiac.
Which I wish, you know, what would have been opposite of
That's
it
fair.
is- That's fair. Yeah.
Yes, Sergeant.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Right?
I'm still in charge of all of you, though.
You heard him.
Yeah.
He's in charge.
He's in charge.
That's funny.
Maggots.
And then Corporal.
That's funny.
Oh my God.
Great. That was a fun episode.
That was a good episode. That was
Laughs.
some good laughs. Yeah, really good
Yeah.
laughs.
Just shout out to anybody that can, in any profession, in any sense, that can take the worst shit and laugh at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whether you're on a line, in a kitchen, or you're in a bar and you have 300 people all ordering espresso martinis at the same time, or you're at a
Oh, dude, yeah.
a
Like
conference,
ER
or
nurses have
ER
some of like the
nurses,
most like
yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by some
Just
pretty heavy shit all the
dig.
time, and the only way you have long careers in that
Yeah.
department is if you can
Yeah.
see humor in things.
see humor.
Yeah.
So keep digging. Keep. What does Joe Dirt say? He's life's garden.
Keep on-
Dig it.
life's
Keep on
garden's
keeping
a
on.
garden.
Keep on,
Keep
keep
on
on,
keeping on.
And
Life's
I think
garden.
maybe the one thing too is people like that, we're blessed to have them because they give the rest of us hope.
Yeah.
When someone can
Those stories carry.
when someone can break that moment, they give all the rest of us hope, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Or it shocks you into like pizza.
I literally think
Well, you're
that
not thinking about dying now.
every time I think of that Scotty Fales story, I try to think of the other people in the bird of when they heard that, all that was going through their mind was probably like, that bullet got really close to my head. That last bullet that went through got really close. And then you hear like, it's the cats. and it takes you out of it for a second. And then you like kind of maybe laugh. And then you're
Just
back
briefly.
in it.
Yeah. For the millisecond or whatever.
for however long it takes for a scared family in a dinghy getting asked if they ordered a pizza. Maybe that's funny. Keep finding humor in shitty things.
It'll end.
It'll end.
This too will end, just like this episode.
Yep.
And this podcast.
And it ends.
Thanks.
Hey, we'll see you.
Hey,
Hey, we'll see it.
we'll see it.